bygone centuries, they depend on manpower to propel their craft. Poverty and prejudice combine against the use of motors. Like all Oriental races, the Chinese are not road makers. They depend on their numerous rivers and canals for transportation. This gives employment to hundreds of thousands of rivermen. Centuries ago, these frugal toilers lived in huts along the riverbanks. Poverty and oppression made it impossible for them to pay their land taxes, so their land was taken away from them. Nothing daunted, they moved their simple belongings onto their boats or sampans. They erected a covering of matting over them and proceeded to carry on doggedly with that fatalistic patience which characterizes the Chinese race. Through the centuries, the rivermen have come to form almost a race apart. They have created traditions of their own. Unwritten laws of their own making govern them. The young rivermen seek their mates among the river girls. A land girl would not consider marrying a riverman. And many rivermen are born, live, and die on their sampan without ever going ashore. Their first trip to land occurs when they are buried, although many find a last resting place beneath the very waters on which they have floated all their lives. Their life is an arduous one. Hard work, long hours, scant remuneration, poor food, and no luxuries whatever. Women do most of the ferrying and sculling. They can spare but little time to care for the young. Until he can walk and take care of himself, a baby sprawls around on the deck, to which he is tied by a stout rope. A gourd is tied to the baby's back, so that if he falls overboard, he will float until mother can haul him back aboard again. We have gradually been working our way southward along the 1,200-mile Imperial Canal that connects Peking with Shanghai. The boats get thicker as we approach the Yangtze River, the chief waterway of China, 2,900 miles long. Here we are in the harbor of Shanghai, at the mouth of the Yangtze River. Here the boats and barges are larger and the loads are heavier. Propelling these heavy barges by hand is hard work indeed, but the coolies are brawny. These big loads of hay are floated down the river for hundreds of miles. They come from the rich pasture lands that border the Yangtze River along its inland reaches. At Shanghai, the hay is transferred to ocean-going vessels that deliver it to other Chinese ports along the coast. Now we get our first glimpse of a Chinese junk. They are built today just as they were built centuries ago. They have no bowsprit. The high stern provides quarters for the women and children. Their tall rectangular sails are made of strips of matting, pieced together and ribbed with bamboo. They bring all manner of produce from the interior and return laden with salt from the coast. Tugs, ocean-going vessels, and other signs of Western activity defy Chinese traditions in this international port. All the nations of the world meet in Shanghai to barter and traffic. This is not a sports event. The boatmen are after a load. First come, first served. These logs were felled in the upper reaches of the Yangtze and were floated down more than 1,000 miles. And now we come to one of the most violent contrasts of the old and the new in China. A modern bridge with trolley cars, and beneath it a floating city of sampans, barges, and junks, all huddled together in a dense mass, just as Marco Polo saw them more than 600 years ago. The simple needs of this floating population are all supplied from boats. They do not have to go ashore. Wedding barges, funeral barges can be hired for the occasion. There are floating theaters and restaurants where prosperous landlubbers may come to feast and to be entertained by sing-song girls. Once in a while, the peace and quiet of this hive of human beings is disturbed by the clamor of many voices when some inside boat tries to worm its way out into the stream. Hens seem to be quite as industrious in China as they are elsewhere. They also lay their eggs in the same old-fashioned way. These boats are stocking up at a shore market and will soon wriggle their way through the sampans to sell their wares to the boatmen who never go ashore. These barges are preparing to transfer their loads to one of the warehouses on shore. And what flimsy structures they are. You know, I could not help wondering what would happen if some Chicago cow kicked over a lantern in all this dry timber. Another fire, and a fierce one. The riverman's fare is simplicity itself. Tea and rice, rice and tea, with an occasional interlude when they are able to pick up some rubbish thrown out by steamers. Sometimes 3 generations are found living happily in the cramped quarters of a junk. The senior member rules supreme. The rest of the family never question his authority. We can understand in a way how Oriental fatalism and patience may have helped these industrious but unprogressive rivermen to accept their poverty and lack of comfort with resignation. But our Western minds, so intent on fighting all kinds of germs, cannot understand by what magic these rivermen are able to keep healthy and reach a ripe old age, living as they do under such filthy and unsanitary conditions.